We'll be back from that break. You're still watching the POLICON as we are addressing matters to do with regional integration and how best is it going to, of course, boost businesses within. But of course, as we head into understanding such aspects, we need to understand that there are catalysts that should also be looked into, because for it to succeed to our expectations, there ought to be steps that have to be done, what has to be done. And it comes back to the individuality of each member state into the East African country. What are they supposed to do? What is their role? Uganda has policies, Kenya has policies, and Tanzania, Rwanda, and so many, South Sudan. But of course, there comes back to the individuality of each country as they play a role for the success of this integration. Now, I'm still with my guest, John Walabiechi. He's a consultant that is from RSCM as we proceed with this discussion. Well, Mr. John, now, it's quite very interesting. Like we know, if we look at the European Union, every nation in that country has a brick to that union. To the fact that today we even benchmark on it. It was not just, there was a collective responsibility. Now, coming back to East Africa, the late Magufuli, Tanzania becomes a middle-income country in just 5 years. Kenya is a middle-income country, but it took a while. Let's understand the secret of that, because it holds ingredients for a success of an integration if we had that kind of accountability in leadership. Let's talk about that. What was the secret of that? And I believe it can apply to these other countries in East Africa.
I think one thing you must, when you look at a country like Tanzania, and these are facts we've seen, right from independence, they have matured into a country that is probably a flag bearer in the region. They've had several changes of government, and through that process, they've had different leaders and different policies. Magufuli came through, the late Magufuli came through a process such as they have in Tanzania, and he emerged as the appropriate leader for that country. And in a short space of time, and very quickly, we all saw what was going on, the developments that were in Tanzania. Instantly he came and he changed the mindset of the population. Instantly he was fighting corruption. Instantly he was fighting everything that hindered his country from achieving the growth they wanted. For example, he went after the mining sector. And the well-documented cases with Acacia Gold when they issued a $190 billion tax assessment. That would shake any country in terms of tax collection. But he went after that mining sector because for so long he believed that Tanzanians were shortchanged from the benefits of the country's resources. Because all they were doing was exporting the raw material, and then getting a very small royalty, and yet when the gold and the mineral leaves the country, it comes back at a very, very exorbitant price. Many of us buy jewelry for different reasons, but you know how expensive it is. So he felt that was not fair to his country, so he issued this big tax bill to this company that he felt was shortchanging the country. The result of which was talks had to be held to look at all the royalty agreements once again. And the result was Tanzania got a much, much better deal, several, double-digit percentage from the one-digit percentage they had before. So the point I'm making here is that our leaders hold the keys to transforming this region. If our leaders don't have their priorities right, if our leaders are focused only on entrenching themselves, rather than looking at the big picture and saying, you know what, this is what I can do. perhaps we need a reset. New ideas come in to take us through. So, can you imagine if, for example, Tanzania had a long stay or a previous leader who stayed for long?
For long, exactly.
For example, there would be no inspirational new ideas. Let's do this because the same. And you know that the cliche goes that if you keep doing the same things, yeah, it's bordering on insanity because it's not changing the result, but you keep doing the same things. So you keep changing. Yeah. So here's a guy who comes in and transforms his country in a short space of time because of his outlook and what he wanted to do for the country. So leaders are very important when it comes to transforming the region. We must have a singular objective to better the lives of the population of this region.
Okay. Now, taking a look at what's happening lately, talking about the delays, okay, despite all these differences, at least today, to travel to Kenya, I don't need a passport, I need a national ID. Isn't that, can't we say that we are reaching somewhere, or that is nowhere closer, at least with that step?
I think that was a very positive step.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has a passport.
True.
And every time we issue new passports, we are changing them or revising them, same thing as the national ID, but that's a different discussion. Yeah. The issue is that if regional integration is to be achieved, there needs to be freedom of movement of the people.
Of the people.
Because the integration is for the people.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. If we can get that, then it will be easy for business to relocate, goods to move, because these things must follow people.
People, exactly.
Okay? So you mentioned something previously about one of the companies whose exports were being banned from entering the country.
Because of border.
We need to get to a point whereby if somebody is good at something, let him be the one to...
Exactly, to produce that.
To produce it.
Yeah, exactly.
And once we achieve that, then integration will be achieved. Let whoever has the comparative advantage, let's strengthen him, let's empower him, let him do it, let him be the one to do it, because then we are all the winners. Because now the fact that this milk has not been allowed to enter Kenya is detrimental to the Kenyan consumer.
Exactly.
Then the people in Uganda have lost their jobs because we can no longer supply them. Okay? The integration is for the people.
Exactly.
On this side, we have unemployed people. We're not getting revenue. On the other side, milk is expensive, they can't get it. So why are we talking integration if we're not talking about the guy on the ground? So that's where the integration really matters. Yes, that's where it matters. Okay? We're talking about interaction of people, whether it's for whichever language it is. They're the ones who are going to speak it, not the business community.
Exactly. The language. Exactly. That's very interesting. But now, as we talk about this integration, imagining an integrated East Africa, because I know to some extent the Western Bloc has had a certain influence to the progress of this. Can a united East African community be able to overcome the global pressure of the Western powers in either way of trying to affect policies when we are one?
That is what we are aspiring to do. We want to be able to speak with one voice. Because if you speak with one voice and you're coming with the backing of a market of 300 million people across the community, then you'll be listened to. But right now, we're all fragmented. What does Uganda want? So we might go there with our narrow outlook on things. This is what we want. Kenya has its own agenda. Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, whatever it is they want, everybody has an agenda. So in the end, the sum total of what the region gets versus what we would have obtained or lobbied or fought for as one big block is different.
Exactly.
Okay? I'll give you a good example. When you compare with what the UK did with Brexit, they then started to go and start to discuss their own trade deals. Yet they left a huge block like the EU,
Exactly, yes. Where they could have a bigger negotiation power.
where they would have had a bigger negotiation. And we're seeing the effects of that. Now there's talk of maybe we didn't benefit as much as we wanted, because a big trading bloc such as China, of 1 billion plus people,
Yeah.
here comes a small country of 60 million people to talk. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
you can already feel
Yeah.
who will take it more seriously. The other, the 60 million person wants access to the 1 billion. But the 1 billion will be scratching his head saying, but they're just 60 million, which is not even a province in my country.
Exactly.
So these are some of the things that we need to think about. That the faster we integrate, the faster we begin to speak one language, one voice, the quicker we align ourselves to the bigger objective of what the EAC is supposed to do, then I think we'll make progress. But right now, I think everybody has his own agenda. You're banning my goods from entering your market. These goods can enter. We still have work permits to, you know, somebody was commenting the other day, it's you know, to fly to some of these West African countries, it's difficult.
To fly there,
How do you get there?
you need a passport.
Yes, but the route, we don't even have direct flights amongst ourselves in some instances outside of East Africa.
Okay.
So, but in East Africa, yes, we can, but those are some of the things that we still have a lot of internal issues to deal with, and this boils down to the leadership. If they can eliminate those and make us focus on the big goal, then I think we shall be able to achieve. The problems will remain, but we're all moving in the same direction.
Okay. Then there is also an aspect of commitment to different regional groupings. Tanzania is part of the SADC, at the same time part of the East African community. Uganda has responsibilities with COMESA, the East African Cooperation, and IGAD itself. I thought those would be driving factors to an integration, but why are they also, or they are just as some sort of an avenue to get funding?
I think, to me, my personal opinion is alignment of goals.
Alignment of goals.
We're doing too many things at the same time. Why don't we first focus on what's next to us? Sort out the infrastructure amongst us. Okay? Now, just getting to Zambia, I don't know if there's any trade relationships there between businessmen here and there, or Zimbabwe for that matter. We're then saying we're going to be part of COMESA. What has it achieved? Me as an everyday guy on the street, I haven't felt it. I don't know. Maybe I need to be educated, but I am not sure what it has done for us. The one that I can feel and I can see is EAC. Why don't we focus our attention to solving our problems? Then once we are viable, and maybe other countries, other regions have also sorted out their issues, then we can then talk about EAC, COMESA, SADC trade. But right now,
First sort the big fish.
sort out what is near you. Sort out your home first before you go outside too.
So we perfect the East African community
Yes,
before we go
perfect
for
it.
other.
I think that's my view. Because, you know, the resources alone in EAC, we've just been talking about Tanzania and its mineral wealth.
Minerals.
Now we are talking about oil and gas in Uganda. There's huge agriculture potential in all three, I should say all 6 East African countries. Okay? DRC has just come in. So the potential to harness all of these resources within the region is where we should be looking. And this is what we should be trying to resolve in this EABC summit that will be held here in Kampala.
But if somebody says that COMESA seems to be bigger because it has more countries in that, so maybe there is a reason why we should put our efforts in there. And what if still Uganda decided to focus on COMESA? Wouldn't it be of much greater effect than the East African Cooperation, because COMESA has the numbers?
Well, you might have the numbers,
Yeah.
and I'll give you a good example. Let's put COMESA to one side. It has the numbers. PSC has also grown, include DRC and
Sudan, South Sudan.
South Sudan.
Yeah.
I would argue that just the inclusion of DRC,
Yeah.
when you fix all the countries in COMESA, I think many of them would fit the size of DRC.
If you fit all
because they're small countries.
in COMESA,
I'm talking about geographical size.
geographical size.
So, for example, Uganda, you can put many Ugandans in DRC, about
that is
10 of them.
very true.
So, you may have the numbers because of the small countries joining, but it's the same issues affecting all of us. Infrastructure is poor, cost of capital, tax policy, yeah, cost of transportation, all of those things are big issues. Okay? Then you have South Africa to the south. That's a whole other economy. Which can stand on its own.
Exactly.
And if you add all the other countries around it, with all due respect, you're not going to change much to it.
Okay.
Okay? So, whilst they have the numbers, it's the same issues. So geographically, I would say we're the same size, but although they have many countries, but DRC is a huge place, as well as South Sudan. But size, to me, in this situation, look at ECOWAS. Extends from this end to the other end.
Exactly.
But it's the same issues. We really need to... Yes. I mean, and this is for different reasons. It's all colonial. We're all different. They made us different. But we need to have focused leadership that will bring that all together. Because the divisions are, in my opinion, perhaps deliberate to keep us separated from actually coming together to achieving the objective that we want.
You mentioned about colonialism. ECOWAS, because we know, the different member states were colonized by different colonies, and that explains why there is a fragmentation. Now, I believe the matters that affect ECOWAS also affect us, because we are the same. The problems that are affecting Africa are the same. They are the same. Now, how do we overcome the long-term colonial effects? And we know they have contributed to where we are today, but how do we destroy that mindset?
To me, the main thing we have to do is to try and get us to first see each other as partners. We have to develop trust amongst ourselves. Okay? Now, that mistrust has been encouraged or has been promoted by the ex-colonizers in some shape or form. Okay? Even the structure of how we do things, even the setup of how they left us meant that we were so distrustful of the next person. And the best of that was the French and the British. Okay? For so long, we couldn't integrate with DRC because they were French speaking.
French speaking, exactly.
And that is the only reason.
Perfect.
That we won't understand each other.
Yeah.
Okay? DRC,
Yes.
Rwanda has now come on board. They've allowed English to be official. I don't know if French still is an
Rwanda, yeah,
official.
actually, I saw Rwanda hosted the
Yes.
Commonwealth.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay? Now, all those are geopolitical repositioning that is happening. Okay? So the impact of colonialism still exists because these guys have never really truly gone away. They're out, but they're in.
They're in. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
In other ways. So until we get to a point where we can make our own, we can chart our own direction, and that comes from the leaders. Our leaders really need to have a focused goal as to where we want to go. And if that's where we're going, that's fine. Unfortunately, there's so much short-termism.
Short-termism.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
We are so focused on, will I stay, will I go? Have I finished? You know, it's not even about has he achieved his objective. As long as he stays or she stays, that's what he's focusing on.
Okay. That's very interesting. So that means with the current state, we cannot talk about the continental integration, the African FCTA, following the current fragmentation. I mean, because right now when you move around, every person is talking about, a big chunk of people actually are talking about intercontinental African trade area. Why isn't the East African integration not so much a thing? Are we just there to jump on what is running, what is trending? This is trending.
You see, there's all these aspirations, but we are nowhere near.
We are nowhere near, both of them.
Yes, all of these. And this is why I go back to saying, let's focus on what is closer to home. Okay? We have started on a journey, EAC.
ESC, yeah.
Let's focus on that. Okay? I don't know if we have any relations with Niger, for example, or
I'm
Mauritania,
Exactly.
or Morocco. I don't know. I have not felt it. Somebody needs to. You see, all that integration, is for a purpose. Why are we integrating? Is there something our dear friends in Sierra Leone have
that we can trade with?
With.
Yeah.
Okay. Sierra Leone is better placed to trade with the Gambia, which is next to him.
Exactly.
He knows the history. They've been trading with each other for many years. So why, to me, let's focus on what
Closer to home.
is closer to home, what we can manage. Otherwise, going Africa, who's going to drive it?
Who's going to?
Drive it.
Drive it.
You have 50 heads of state with different outlooks.
And aspirations.
The North Africans, are the Africans they are not? I don't know. We saw this clearly in the World Cup. Example was Morocco.
Very true.
Where they didn't think they were fighting for Africa. Now this is the guy you want to bring to integrate. He feels more integrated with the Middle East for historical and cultural reasons. So we need to be. It's good. I mean, it's the African dream. It's good. We all want all of this to happen. But if we are to bring things closer to home, if we are to be practical, I would rather we focused on the ESC and other regional bodies which work for those countries in those regions. Wow. Then one day, when we are all integrated, then it's a formality.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you're still watching the POLICON. I'm Andrew Barije with my guest, John Balabiechi. He's a consultant from RSCM. And of course, the big concern here is about regional integration. How is it going to impact business development? Now, that is within the country, Uganda. But definitely now we're going to get into a break. And we shall be returning to wrap this up. But of course, when we come back, there are quite lots of course, interesting topics that are going to be winding up this conversation. Stick around.